There was a time when high school football players would decide where they wanted to go to college by visiting some schools, talking to coaches, and then making a decision with their family. But those days are long gone.
First of all, I want to thank God. I want to thank God for blessing me and putting me in this position. I want to thank all the people who took the time out today and come support me for the next 3 or 4 years. I'll be attending University of Alabama.
The floor is yours. Where are you headed to play your college ball?
I'm going back home, baby.
Well, Harold Perkins makes it official. He is headed to LSU.
Today, The Athletic's Ari Wasserman takes us inside the often over-the-top world of college football recruiting in the year 2022 and explains how one specific aspect of recruiting, the recruit photo shoot, has become increasingly elaborate and important.
Kids feel like they accomplished something if they leave a visit and they have a really cool photo to share. And the amount of time and effort that these programs are putting into these photo shoots would blow people's minds.
Then, why arguably the most hyped high school football player ever is keeping his recruiting approach simple. From Wondery and The Athletic, I'm Anders Kelso. It's Tuesday, April 5th, and this is The Lead. Ari Wasserman, welcome to The Lead.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
So, Ari, I wanted to start here by having you describe, in as much detail as you can, a photo that was recently in a story that you wrote. So why don't you just take it away?
So basically what it is a empty football stadium at Oklahoma State, and there is a football recruit who is wearing a cowboy hat and sitting on a horse, the Oklahoma State Cowboys, and he's pointing at the camera and he's having a great time on a horse. It really is one of the cooler photos I've ever seen from a recruiting visit. I think that he is truly happy to be getting the picture that he got.
And who is the guy in this photo? Tell us what you can about him.
So his name's Stephon Johnson. He's a 3-star prospect from Dallas area where I live.
Yeah, it's really been a good year. We lost a couple games, the key games that we shouldn't have lost, but
and he had offers from Oregon, SMU, Arizona State, Arkansas, Maryland, Penn State, USC, a few others. I mean, he's a really good receiver.
DeSoto's called DeSoto U for a reason. So we always just think about how it's going to be at the next level.
And Stephon Johnson, I should say too, was committed to one point to Oregon and decommitted once Mario Cristobal flipped out and ended up at Miami. 10 years ago, Oregon was the king of swag, right? I mean, they had their uniforms were changing, the Nike money every single weekend they went out, they had a different helmet on, and kids really like that. Look good, feel good is real.
And going back to this cowboy photo at Oklahoma State, Stephon Johnson is, as you mentioned, on a horse. He's wearing an OSU uniform with shoulder pads, and he has cleats on in the stirrups, which I love. Ari, what exactly went on behind the scenes to bring that pretty incredible image to life? Because from your story, it sounds like it was a lot.
So, just so people know, it's against NCAA rules to use mascots. And Oklahoma State, they're the Cowboys. They have a horse, I think his name's Bullet, who is there for the actual games. So, that was not allowed to be used because it would be considered a mascot or a prop. There's a stable in the stadium, and they had to rent a horse to bring to the stadium, put him in the stable, and then they bring him out to the field. And there were people there helping the kids going up and off the horse. So they have all these really nice cameras, $1,000 cameras everywhere, and they actually shoot pictures like it's going to be in a magazine. And it just is, I would say, the microcosm of how much effort, money, time, resources, everything that these college football programs are putting into, making things, for a lack of better words, sexy for Instagram and social media. It's that the whole thing is, what can we do with our school colors and our jerseys to make sure that these kids have something that they can post and get likes for?
And Ari, you talked to Stephon Johnson. What did he have to say about the whole cowboy photo shoot experience?
He loved it. He's like, this is great. He's not going to make his college decision over it, but, he likes the clout on Instagram. He likes the clout on Twitter. And his dad was super into it.
It's something different. He's not a country boy by no stretch of the imagination, but his swag is different, and I think they were trying to appeal to the type of kid he is. And me being a Dallas Cowboys fan, I was really excited about it because, hey, that's close that I can get to the Cowboy right now.
His father also is very much involved in mentoring and coaching football prospects in the Dallas area. And he said that during the time that they were up at Oklahoma State, that they were spending a lot of time, enjoying the day and savoring the moment and really trying to get the best photos possible, but he also tried to make sure that he was stressing to his son that this isn't going to get you where you want to go.
None of this matters if you can't go and do your job. Then this is worthless. This is only leverage to get you there to where you can understand that you have value now, but that only goes as far as you can do your job.
You got to remember they're kids. They don't think like us. They go to a place and they take a bunch of cool pictures. They might be very easily swayed. I remember when I was covering Ohio State, there was a player named Jonathan Hankins. Then I called him during his recruiting process and I said, "What's your favorite thing about Ohio State?" And you know what he said? "I really like their shiny helmets." He ended up going to Ohio State and now he's in the NFL. So it worked out for him. But
Yeah.
they don't think the way an adult does. And this is a very important decision. So, the emphasis is always to make sure that the prospects who are in place remember what to value.
Can you give us a sense of just how unusual this kind of photo shoot is relative to what other schools do? Like, how strange is it to see a kid posting a picture of himself in a college uniform on a horse?
It was unusual enough for me to write about it, but some schools bring in like Rolls-Royce Phantoms and put them on the field. I know Louisville had a bunch of $200,000 cars that they rented for the day and, kind of was a way to get these prospects to manifest what they could have one day if they make it to the NFL. So the thing that people have to understand is that these programs, these huge football facilities, they used to have media rooms and now they've all been replaced with like photo studios. Like, have you ever been to a wedding where you get on this platform and these cameras go around in circles and you like pose with props and like, happy nuptials, and like they have these in the schools now and they're trying to be creative and new and different. And Oklahoma State, came up with an idea, and it's like in recruiting, it's just like, what's going to be the next thing? And I'm very excited to see what it is because now we've got livestock in the mix, and I find that to be kind of funny.
All right, so I think we have a sense of how recruits and their families feel about these photo shoots, or at least how some of them do. But what about on the other side of things? As you were working on this story, Ari, what did football coaches who you spoke with say about their thoughts on the matter?
There's a large portion of staffers in college football, like coaches, assistants, and stuff, that don't like them. Because, as you mentioned at the top of the show, recruiting used to be about relationships and going to a place that's going to best develop you and your educational path and all the things that we like to think is what goes into a college decision. But now people are actually like spending all morning setting up a photo shoot for prospects. And it's like it used to be about going to the academic buildings and touring the facilities and sitting down with advisors and coaches and looking at tape. And I'm not saying that those things don't exist, but the amount of time and energy that is spent setting these things up is hilarious. Because it's like you have 25 people running around like chickens with their heads cut off trying to figure out what the best way to set up a photo shoot is. And it can be a very taxing thing for a lot of people. All for what? So that a kid can get a bunch of retweets on Twitter. And the other thing too that they have to keep track of is that, coaches and recruiting staffers have to be keenly aware of prospects who are just visiting only to do the photo shoots. It's not just about showing people a good time, but there's a tremendous amount of time and energy wasted on prospects who are just coming because they want the Instagram photo and have no intention of ever considering that school.
Right.
And think about the resource waste that is.
I believe you also spoke with one or two people who work behind the scenes to actually make these photo shoots happen. What did they have to say about the process and how things have changed as these shoots have become more commonplace and more complicated?
I talked to a former recruiting staffer named Chanel Smith Walker, who's now a team photographer with the Carolina Panthers and used to work at North Carolina State and Tennessee. And, she kind of gave me a very good insight into how overworked and how difficult it is to be in a position of creativity at the college level because of the demand of these pictures and how many kids are on campus and visiting and, how there's just more things to do than there are hours in the day.
You already don't have the manpower to do what they're asking for, not even including the recruiting side of it. And you're adding the other element of you're able to bring all these other things into the stadium to shoot with. It's crazy. Like, to me, it's just not realistic for the amount of stuff that they're asking for.
Like, if you're a recruiting coordinator being in a position where you have to find out how to rent a horse, could you imagine if I said, you have to rent a horse for work today? Like, what you would like, it's like, what am I doing here? They're adults.
And it's even more frustrating because now it's like everyone gets one. Everyone's getting a hype video. Everyone's getting a graphic. That is like we're getting burnt out even more. That's why you're seeing this mass exodus of people just leaving.
And the NCAA in the last 6 months recently changed a rule where you're allowed to create videos now.
Oh boy.
And creating a video is a huge undertaking. So now you have people who have already been overworked and underpaid, having to do things that are far more intensive than editing a photo. And it's just like at a certain point, the bubble's going to pop and you're going to have programs that are able to do it, programs that aren't able to do it.
So, Ari, what kind of an impact do these photo shoots have on the actual recruiting process? Do they, in fact, make a difference? Do we know?
Yeah, I think they do. I don't know that you can sit back and say, well, here are the 30 prospects that had the best photos and they went to the places that got the photos. But I do think that, with the experience that I had talking to multiple recruiting coordinators at programs of all sizes, the entire idea is that it's all about the experience. And if you go to a place that has everything that you want to do set up, and you get there and you get the picture that you want and you get to sit on a horse or you get to put on a uniform that you've liked since you were 10 years old and take a picture with the head coach, that might seem elementary to us or to adults, but you have to remember that this is about what a 17-year-old person will think about when they leave and the memory that they'll carry with them. It's like somebody might remember one day that they got to be on a, revolving camera platform with Brian Kelly. And there have been prospects that have been committed to schools for long periods of time, but didn't get a great photo shoot at that school, took a visit, 2 weeks before the signing period, and then bounced to the new school. So like the short-sightedness from a long-term 4-year, 50-year college decision can sometimes come down to which people have the best cameras.
And circling back to Stephon Johnson, did the Cowboy photo shoot work? Is he indeed headed to Oklahoma State?
Yeah, he's signed with Oklahoma State. Now, I don't know what, I'm sure there's other motivations. Like Oklahoma State was on the verge of winning the Big 12 last year, and Oklahoma State also has a 4-star quarterback from the Frisco area of Dallas, but he did end up going there. So, and why? I don't think it's because he had the coolest photo in the world. I think it's because when he took that photo, he felt one with the coaches and, was in a good position to, have some memories that he can fall back on and relationships that he can trust when he gets to that next level.
Okay, coming up, an incredibly famous recruit who's doing things 1970s style. Well, Ari, in this bizarre world of adults scrambling to do photo shoots of high school kids on horses and in front of Rolls Royces, there apparently are some kids who just are not interested in all the flashiness, including arguably the most hyped high school football player of all time. So on that note, Ari, can you just give us the quick 101 on Arch Manning?
If you don't know who Arch Manning is, I bet you could guess.
Arch Manning, the son of Cooper Manning and the nephew of Peyton and Eli Manning, is already being talked about as the next star in the Manning's football tree.
He is Peyton and Eli Manning's nephew, the son of Cooper Manning, and the number one overall player in the 2023 class. He's a 6'3" or 4" quarterback prospect, a multi-sport athlete with a rocket cannon arm.
But unlike his uncles Eli and Peyton, Arch also possesses speed on the run like his grandfather, Archie.
He throws it well, and he is able to run around. I guess Peyton and I got my mom's speed, so or it skips a generation. I don't know what happened there.
And because his uncles are Hall of Fame NFL quarterbacks and his grandfather was also a very good football player, Archie Manning, the hype train on this kid is out of the world.
Major college programs around the country all want to look at the number one high school quarterback prospect in the 2023 class.
I don't think there's been a more hyped football prospect in the history of college football.
Well, you recently talked to Arch Manning's high school coach, a guy named Nelson Stewart. First, can you tell us a little about him and his connection to the family?
Yeah, I mean, he played with Peyton Manning at the high school that he coaches now, 25 or whatever years ago it was. And he's remained close friends with the Mannings and is coaching their kid. He's a family friend and somebody who coached Odell Beckham Jr. and some other prospects that have played college football before. And he's a very pivotal person in the whole grand scheme of who's going to get Arch Manning. The thing that you have to understand about high school football recruiting nowadays is that there used to be a direct line that you had to go through the coach in order to talk to a prospect. And now in the world of Instagram and Twitter, anybody on earth can send a message to whoever they want to and speak to them directly. And in this specific case, you can't talk to Arch Manning unless you go through the coach.
And so what did Stewart tell you about Arch Manning and the way that he and his father want to navigate this recruiting process?
They want him to be a teenager.
When it started, I kind of asked him, what do we want this to be like? He said, I want this to be an old school recruitment, a 1970s, 80s feel. He said, I want my son to, have a normal high school existence. I don't want him getting caught up in, like you said, social media and 7-on-7 teams and having people have so much access to him that he's never really able to have real authentic conversations and really get a chance to know people.
And that they want him to not lean 100% into that I'm a larger than life prospect and a Manning until he gets to college. So they're really making this to be a football decision, and they're taking a a relationships and visits approach to this whole thing.
Arch wants to find the best fit for him, and I mean it's simple as that. I think he's a meat and potatoes kid. He drives a pickup to work. He uses it as a hat on. He likes to throw balls after school. He likes to do that. He is while he's a deep kid, I think it's all about fit.
And when he goes to these campuses, he's not doing it any differently than everybody else. He's wearing gym shorts and watching practices and really trying to get a feel for these things. And I kind of respect the way that he's going about it.
At Georgia and Texas, he's gone with a t-shirt and shorts, going to practices and installs and meetings, and taking notes and watched lifting, and that's really who he is.
The hope for him is that they're successful in doing that. He can make an informed decision based on the things that he finds important and can at least cling to a little bit of what's left of his childhood. Because, personally speaking, I don't know if it's possible to shield that.
Peyton will come down for a game. We'll talk after the game. He'll give me some advice, what we think they're there. And then my dad gives me advice after every game. And then my grandfather, Archie, he basically he tells me everything like every day. He gives me a text, motivational text. And then 4 games, he just says have fun. And that's what I do. And it's really simple when it comes to that.
And I understand that Arch Manning is the exact opposite of most recruits when it comes to social media activity. Is that correct?
Yeah, he created Twitter in February and has like 7,000 followers now and never has tweeted and is following nobody. So it's there. He's verified, but he doesn't use it. So, I think maybe it's possible that there are coaches that are able to, get in contact with him through that realm. And maybe he's just using it as a communication device. But even so, it's just kind of there as like a mythical portal to what it could be if he decided one day to act like a 5-star prospect. I mean, this could go off the rails, man. Like, could you imagine if he went out and did all these photo shoots and posted pictures from multiple colleges wearing their uniform and gave teases of who his top 5 were going to be and, said, I'm making my decision now, and then pushed it back and then committed and decommitted and did all the things that a typical 5-star prospect would do, like with his last name, like how crazy that would be from a media frenzy. He hasn't even as much as released a top 5 list. So you're getting really nothing. And maybe that's building on the legend and really helping his profile.
What do we know about which schools he's taken visits to, if any, and where he might be leaning?
Yeah, well, where he's leaning is, we can speculate about that all day. I think the only thing that we can do, given the fact that he's not releasing a top 5 list, is to read the tea leaves and to see where he's visiting the most. And those schools right now are Texas, Ole Miss, Alabama, and Georgia.
Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss. LSU has done, I think, a really, really good job with Brian Kelly and the quarterback coach of Joe Sloan in terms of kind of reintroducing LSU to him. I think he does want to make time to go up and have a real visit, go in and see that. And then Florida's a brand new coach, Billy Napier's phenomenal. And I think those are the tops right now.
Right now, those would be the 6, I said, schools that seem to be in the best position right now. But at the same time, the only way that we can figure out where he's headed or where he's going is by watching and seeing which schools he's visiting the most, and those 4 are the ones that that he seems to be paying the most attention to back.
I think that wherever he goes, it's going to be a credit to a school that has been, I think, relentless in terms of their pursuit of him, but also understanding that you do have to, in my opinion, really peel the curtain back.
The NCAA's new name, image, and likeness rules have had a big impact on recruiting. We've heard stories about players choosing one school over another because they'll make much more money through NIL opportunities that have been set up for them at that school. Ari, how much of a role, if any, do you expect NIL to play in Arch Manning's college career and in his choice potentially of where to attend?
Think about it this way. The most marketable quarterback in the history of the NFL is probably Peyton Manning. So the fact that this kid is directly related to Peyton Manning, who has really done a good job in media and has always been in commercials, means that he's probably worth a hell of a lot of money. And just having that last name puts him in a position where he could be in a national commercial for Fritos in the Super Bowl next year before ever playing it down. So I do think that to a certain extent that he is leaving some money on the table in the short term by not having a social media and kind of not revealing his personality as much. But in the long term, what's he worth? Probably, if some other kid's getting paid $8 million for a 4-year period, I'd probably say triple that, maybe. It's going to be a lot of money. But the good thing for him is that he has access to a ton of money already, and there doesn't seem to be a rush to get that money. And as it pertains to the impact it's going to have on his college decision, I'm not necessarily sure that I think that it's going to be a factor at all, because he seems to be more interested in going to a place that's going to develop him into an NFL star the way that his uncles were.
And lastly, Ari, stepping back here, Where do you think things will go next in this strange world of college recruiting? Is this a genie is out of the bottle situation where things can only get more elaborate and creative in terms of what schools do to try and get kids? Is it possible that schools might reel it in a bit? Where do you think we go from here?
Well, I mean, the thing that's interesting about the NIL situation is that it's not about what the schools are doing. It's about what the fans of the programs are doing with these collectives and what people are willing to pay. When a 5-star quarterback just earned an $8 million deal, according to The Athletic, for a 4-year period of time, I thought that was an insane amount of money. And I'm not saying that the kid didn't earn it. I think it's America. If you're worth something, then you should get paid for it. But, I'm very curious to see how far these collectives will go, how much money can actually get thrown around on an annual level, because we're so new into this world. We don't know what it's going to look like in 5-10 years. So, where's it going? I don't know. But if we're opening it up to a bidding market and there's no salary cap, I guess it's based on which fan bases want to pony up the most amount of money in order to get this kid on campus. And, what about the billionaire corporation owners that are boosters of these schools? It's going to be insane. And I think it's going to get really off the rails in the next few years. And I'm very curious to see if it settles down at all in the next 10.
Lori, thanks so much for coming on and breaking all this down for us.
Yeah, no problem, buddy. I appreciate you.
You can follow all of Ari Wasserman's coverage of college football and college football recruiting at theathletic.com. From Wondery and The Athletic, I'm Anders Kelto. Thanks for listening.